how did they discover the cemetery? Because there was nothing to show for. Was there an archaeological how do you call it, research into that?
Well,
that they found some human.
Of course, that happened. I think when we were, maybe I was young or I was not even born. They were called Samoturi and Babaturi. Yeah, so their names were captured in almost every history of slavery books. When you read much of slavery, you will come across their names. They are very popular names.
TV, we explore.
So we're branching into the slave camp. Not yet to kind of get an interaction with the people who are in charge here. That's a very beautiful design there, right there. All right, let's stop and go see the people there.
Yeah, so you are welcome to the camp.
Thank you.
Then, let's be going while stopping.
So which camp is this?
This is called Picoro Slave Camp.
Okay.
My name is Joseph Kugoram.
Okay, sounds good.
One of the official tour guides in the camp. Just like I said, Picoro is a name in Kasam, meaning a place surrounded by rocks.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you look around, you see so many
rocks around.
Yeah, around. That is located in a village called Nania. Nania means place of cattle, cows.
Hold on, it rings a bell. Is that what Abedi Pele named this team?
Yeah, Abedi Pele came from here.
Oh, he comes from here.
The family house is just over there.
Oh, that's Abedi Pele's family house?
This house, this side, I will show you that.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is where he came from, you family.
Okay.
Yeah. So according to history, slave trade happened everywhere in West Africa, and this was one of the paramount camps where slaves were kept before they were then taken down to the coast and handed over to the white people.
Okay.
So a young man came to this particular camp around 1704 to capture or take our young people who were physically built, the giants, bringing them here to the camp and taking them through Salga slave market in the Savannah region down to the castles where the white people were staying to hand over to the white people.
Okay.
And he was not actually willing to disclose more of his origin to the people who were living in the village as at that time. So they gave him a name in Kasam, Paga, meaning a bushman.
Okay.
Just like we do, the Kasnes, when someone should come from a different community or travel far and come back, they refer to the person as a bushman, Paga, or not necessarily mean the person went to bush or is coming from bush, but because you are not from the community.
Okay.
Yeah, so they gave him that name because he was not willing to disclose more of his origin to the people around him.
Okay.
Yeah. So he started a business and later was joined by two of international slave masters from Burkina Faso and Mali. They were called Samoturi and Babaturi. Yeah, so their names were captured in almost every history of slavery books. When you read much of slavery, you will come across their names. They are very popular names.
Okay.
So Samoturi and Babaturi came down to the camp to assist him to capture the slaves and take them to the white men because they were already doing that business. But this particular camp was where nature has built people around with such physical qualities. When you take the northern part of Ghana, joined together with southern Burkina Faso, it was called Upper Volta. And that was where nature has designed them a bit giants, and they were They made the criteria. Sorry to say, but those down there in the southern sector were a bit shorter and darker.
All right.
So much of the attention was rather placed on the upper Voltarians, which is around this place. Yeah, so that was why the international slave masters came down here to assist him in doing this business.
Okay.
So they were traveling all walks of life, capturing people they were interested in forcefully. They were brought to the camp. They were tied against the trees around to prevent escape, after which they were then taken to the slave market in Salaga, where they were sold out to retailers, and from there they were taken through Asima, down to the castles. Yeah, so I think briefly that was how the journey was. So when these people traveled to any social gathering or funeral houses, they saw people they were interested in, or the villages, they caught them by force and they were chained. Then they were brought forcefully to this place. They were tied against the trees that were around to prevent escape, because they wouldn't waste their time to go and capture you and come and let you sit, or you run all of a sudden.
Were there no resistance from the people?
There were actually resistance, but it was forcefully way of capturing them. It wasn't optional. It wasn't something, whether you like or not, you go.
Right.
So they will capture you by force. Whether you try to run, if they chase and get you, they bring you to the camp. And if you are trying to fight to free your brother or your wife or maybe your relative, and you also met the criteria, you are likely to also be taken alongside whosoever they were trying to get. That means you brought yourself.
Okay.
So that was the situations. So they were doing this for a whole number of years, around 1704 to 1764, here in the camp, where later on the people came with a very brilliant idea, because they tried to fight them here in the camp. But whenever they tried this, they didn't succeed, because the people were very, let me say, fortified. They were having weapons which were given to them by the white people, spiritually and physically. They were undefeatable. But these villagers also came with a good idea of, then let's attack them in different places. Because whenever they go to capture slaves, they travel, one person go here, another person here, another person there. Then we attack them one by one. I think by so doing we can fight and defeat them.
Okay.
So the first person was killed, I think somewhere in the Bulsa land during December, just like from this time going, he was actually killed. You know, during those times there were not particular dates to specify that he was killed at this
on these days,
but he was killed around this festive season. I mean, where he was killed when he went to capture slaves. And they also celebrate a festival called the Fiok Festival. I think my auntie should know about the Fiok Festival. They celebrate it to remember their forefathers who fought and killed the slave master from to free their people from slavery. Yeah, the other person was also killed between Navrongo and Paga, where he was also taking slaves to the Salga slave market. He was also fought and killed, and a tree was planted on the grave to always remember where he was killed. The last person was also killed at the end. Yeah, so this is how the three slave masters were fought and killed to free our people.
So you mean those popular guys?
Those popular guys together with the local slave master.
The local slave master,
okay.
The two who came from Burkina
and Mali.
And Mali.
One from Burkina,
one from Mali, and then
the other one was actually not willing to disclose his origin.
Oh, the one they called the bush something Bagawa.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's all the three were killed.
All the three.
That sounds
killed.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that is how the three were killed.
Okay.
And our people were free from slavery.
Thank
so
God.
A whole lot of structures were done here, which were left behind. They were using to enable them to stay in the camp. So those are the various things we are going to move around to check or to see.
Okay.
Which will serve as evidence as to what really transpired during that era.
Okay.
So we will see their water source, where their water was got from to drink and prepare their meals.
How did they discover the cemetery? Because there was nothing to show for. Was there an archaeological research into that?
Well,
that they found some human.
Of course, that happened. I think when we were, maybe I was young or I was not even born. But I think last 2 years, National Panafect, the chief of Paga, came and was talking about it. When some archaeologists came around, they wanted to know definitely was this a real story or what. They have today to get some skull, they had some of the things and what they were actually to get it. Some of the graves, it was then that we realized that most of the graves were given mass burial. Some were not even containing one body. They contained a lot of bodies. Yeah, some were given mass burial. I think depending on the number of slaves that died at a time, they just buried them together and continue with what.
So did they exhume them, or they still kept them in there? The bones and their skulls?
Yeah, they just have to leave it back. Maybe for ritual purposes or something like that. They just have to leave it there. It was just to prove what really transpired here. Yeah, you cannot just say this is a cemetery, Ghana tourist board is using it. And they were not actually sure. They want to be sure.
That's why.
Yeah, so I think some of the African Americans coming around presented rates to these dead bodies. Even that they were there. Where the Picoro slaves were punished for the crimes they committed. So due to their stubbornness, or maybe some of the relatives who came in to fight to free the captives, where some of them were also captured and brought for punishment for the crimes they committed. Some were captured and part of this case. So this was how they punished them. They sit them like this, and because they were tall and giants, their legs were down, their hands were behind them. So they were chained tightly against the rock with their eyes facing the sun. A railroad was sitting there monitoring how the punishment was going. So you were sitting with your eyes widely open, facing the sun, from sunrise to sunset.
What?
That was your punishment. So if you are trying to close your eyes, definitely you close your eyes. You get someone behind you, very nice case, and they will be giving it to you. So you can imagine beating someone on this rock with these temperatures from sunrise to sunset. You might not be fortunate. If you are not fortunate, this is just the damping ground for such bodies. They will damp you here, they continue with whatever they might do. So most of the slaves lost their lives due to this particular punishment. Some were affected by something, some were sick and lack of herbal care, they didn't get time to do their herbs, and a whole lot of things. Many lost their lives during that particular era here in the camp. So these are some of the things history left behind for us to learn from. If there is no question, we are done. We are moving back.
Any question?
Like, do you have a festival to actually commemorate this kind of nice history?
Yeah, I think it happens every year. It's always a festival that takes one whole month to celebrate. So from July to 1st August, from July to 1st August, we always celebrate a 1 month, festival to always remember our forefathers who lost their lives during slavery era. And I think that one is for the whole nation. So it's called National Panifex. Yeah, National Panifex. Every year they try to do this.
So an aspect takes place here?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
I think that is 1st August. 1st August, that one is always a big day where chiefs and elders, people from the diaspora community, some of our security agencies, and most people, everyone, anywhere you are closer to slave cemetery, you also move there for that particular occasion. Okay. Many come around, burn candles, present ribs, and a whole lot. Most of the time they do it like just a funeral, the way you do your funeral. That is how they do it. Try to convey the information to the younger ones also. So every year we do it here. Yeah.
So you say it's around August?
Okay. Yeah. No, it's from July to 1st August. 1st August is the
climax.
The climax is the Durban. Yeah. So if you actually want to experience it, 1st August, make your way up here
to Picoro slave camp.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the cemeteries of slaves, we have a lot of them in the nation. It's not actually only here in the camp that we have slave cemeteries. They are still somewhere. You know, it happened everywhere. So there are still cemeteries in some places which I myself haven't even been there before. Okay. So the whole nation celebrated.
So depending on how close it is.
How close it is. Yeah. Okay.
That is awesome.
So this is
Nobody has any
we are out of here. Any question?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a nice tour through the Picoro slave camp here in the Upper East region, Paga.
This is their youth family I was talking about.
Oh, their youth family?
Yeah.
Which one is it? The blue one?
The blue is just a toilet. From here going all is one house.
Can you zoom that? That is Abedi Pele, Ghana's legend, football legend. That is their family house right there.
So I think when you are moving, when you get to this side, you see a red building, an old building. I think you built it somewhere 2003. for himself. They don't maintain it, so.
Oh, wow.
He comes here. He came here. I think that is last week. Feeling himself. Whenever the kids are going to play tournament, he comes here and do network, African network.
Really?
He counts a lot.
Oh, he comes to control the
network.
The network. You see, something can be done. The ways and means. I guess that's about
there is nothing. Hoping to see something changes in the community, that you see something you are doing in the town. We know that your bonuses can even do something for the community, but it seems nothing is.
So this question, I think you'll be in a good position to answer.
Okay.
Don't you think it's because of the perception and how our parents, our predecessors, our grandparents and everything, the way they talk and the way they raise, that is actually what is keeping someone that is an indigent of a community away from doing something significant for his community. Number one.
Okay.
The belief that, oh, if you do something there, they're gonna kill you. so they don't even want their children to go back to their native country, like their home country. Hey, you know how to do that. Like witches are there, they're gonna do something to you and make you mess up your destiny.
Of course.
Don't you think that is part of the reason?
Well, I think for his case, it happens in most people's cases. It's really a big factor that hinders people from coming to develop especially their family houses. Of course, because these our people, especially the African perception, when you see that someone is going high in the family, instead of using your network to help the person, they are rather using their network to pull you back.
Right.
Yeah, so it happens in most people's case. But for their case, you grew up here.
Oh, okay. So you are actually born
your parents died here.
Oh, okay.
You came here whenever, as and when necessary, you need the network to use. You come here. So if there is any way they want to kill you,
they would have
killed you.
Yeah. So you actually connected to the network already.
Even more than that.
You are even using
you know it more than So not in their case.
Okay, so there are exceptions.
Of course.
Yeah, but I do feel like in most cases it's something that is actually there. So this is a drinkable water.
Yeah,
does it
by African Americans. I think
does it have a filter inside?
Yeah.
It has a water filter inside. Okay.
It was doing one national panel test 1 year that we came and donated about 4 people to the community. Many people came there, but 4 or 5 people I know were fortunate to get their families here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they were very excited. They had to donate to community development. So 4 people donated.
That is nice. I think we should all bring our part and then also try to connect people who are the reason why I'm showing this on camera is that people want to know, they want to see it. There are a lot of people who are actually trying to reconnect, just like Sophia, many of them. The few who are fortunate to have come across videos like this, they made their way out. So we're trying to sell the story out there. And whilst we're talking to them, we need evidence.
I don't
like that. We need to our people. How you all doing?
Let's hear. When people just come from abroad and go there, they think this was where the slaves, but the slaves were not actually captured in the castle.
Oh, yeah.
They were
Captured
captured
from
from somewhere and brought to the castle.
Yeah, so,
So-
even if you consider this place was much of suffering than the castle.
Than the castle.
Because
It was just
castle
like a
looked-
gateway.
Yes.
Passing through there. But they were passing through a whole lot of stresses, walking by foot down to the castle. The castle
walked
was-
by foot?
Of course. The castle was just an exit point for them. But most of the tour guides down there,
Because trust me, until I think a few days ago, I never knew there was something called
the slave camp.
a slave camp here in
Yeah.
Paga. I had no idea.
Okay.
The only place I knew about was the Elmina and the Cape Coast Castle and all that.
You see?
You know.
And that wasn't the camps. That
And when
was
we
just an
went,
exit
even
point.
the tour guide who was talking to us didn't make mention of here.
Yeah.
He talked about how slaves were brought from different
Different
places
places.
and different African countries and things like that. Which I feel like, no, if you
You see-
know that there was
Most of the slaves captured from the sub-Sahara countries were brought through this particular camp. You know, it's a bit unfortunate for them, they do not have a sea. So all the slaves that were captured from there, most of them were supposed to pass through this particular camp to be taken to the castle where there is a sea. So that is why most of the slaves pass through this particular camp.
okay.
But a bit unfortunate to the tour guides so that they don't explain or tell tourists much about these particular places. Yeah. So here was the meeting place of the slaves. Whenever they were captured from all angles and were brought to this camp, they were supposed to all meet here for orientation. So they will be brought here. Most of them were actually thinking their local perception was they were killing those of them they took previously. So they were very sad, thinking that they were using them for ritual or they are taking them somewhere to feed them or a whole lot. So during this particular time, they will try to speak in different dialects, different language for them to know that we are not actually going to kill you. We are taking you somewhere abroad. When we get there, we'll give you jobs, and by the time you return, you'll be responsible for right to
Sign
them.
them.
Of course, they were taking them abroad, but the question was how many of them will make it a return one day. That was the major question, and they were trying to convince them, giving them the rules of the camp. Whenever they assemble them here, they tell them the rules of the camp, what you're supposed to do, what you will live in the camp, and every other necessary thing they needed to do. So this is the only place they will bring them. The masters were on top of the rocks, while the slaves were assembled down here like buried. They will give them necessary information. Sometimes if there is shortage of supply in the Salga slave market, buyers move down here, this particular place, to always make a selection from the slaves. So they come here, they assemble all the slaves once again, then the buyers will also go there to have access to all the slaves in the parade. And the point, their criteria was the physical qualities. So starting up there, they can always see who is tall, who have the muscles, who is young. In the point, I want this one, I want this one. And when they select them like that, they use a hot metal to give them branding, depending on the company they belong to. So they use a hot metal to give them branding, putting it on maybe their shoulders or any part of the body, so that they will know that this particular slaves belongs to me, or they belong to this particular company. We are taking them to this person. Yeah, so that is how they do to them here in the meeting place. Then we are moving to the end part of it, which is the cemetery, the punishment rock, and the watchtower where a raider always stands to monitor the camp. Yeah.
Did they have any lodging place for the slave masters too?
Yeah, actually they were mostly, because the place was a bit bushy and a lot of trees with rocks, mostly they hung around the rocks, but we learned they were having pots which were designed by grasses where the plant they don't need to have down for but they were not having any feminine houses like the one.
So how long did it take them here?
It depends on how fast the three slave masters can travel and get slaves to come back. Or they will travel to different places and you have to wait. The first person when they arrive, you have to wait for the second. The second person must wait for the third person before they take them wherever they were going. So most of the time, the sometimes can be 3 months before they can mobilize slaves and take them to different places. Because there were no means of transport. So everything was done by foot. So before they were really African, so the guys who the white guys were not actually no, they were mainly staying at the castle. That was the history. The castle was built for them. So they were at the castle. They couldn't travel to the castle our strong people.
What's that?
They couldn't travel here to capture our people because we were used to be more stronger than them. Yeah, so they were just staying at the castle and our own royal relatives.
It's actually we are our own enemies.
Of course. That was it. So this happened to be the watchtower of the slave raiders, where they stand to monitor the camp in case
Somebody's trying to escape
from the
and
camp
capture that.
or move from elsewhere to enter into the camp and fight to free their relatives.
Okay.
Yeah, so when they stand there, they can actually see very far, even up to Navrongo, you can see a very far distance. And if you are trying to move and come in and fight them to free your relatives, or maybe you were trying to escape out from the camp and to your village, someone was definitely monitoring from somewhere. It wasn't actually 100%, but this is how they also managed to monitor the camp. If you are trying to escape.
All right. So what about you talked about how they selected the strong ones. Yeah. Tell that. Yeah. The strong ones and then all of that. But after they select them, what becomes of the ones that are feeble that they feel like, oh no, this one can't make it?
Of course.
They leave them.
Most of them were left to their fate, especially when you were seriously sick and they think they cannot continue with you. Many were actually left behind. That is to their fate. Whether you should return back home. You can imagine if you are coming from somewhere, Burkina Faso, Mali, or any other country, a bit far from this place, how do you trace back to your land? Whether you die in the bushes, whether you were attacked by wild animals, and whatever happened to you, no one can trace that again. But most of them who they saw that they were not in good condition and cannot make it again were left behind. Yeah, most died, and that is why we have the cemetery here, due to several reasons, many reasons. Most of them lost their lives. When someone is going to give you this history, many people will give you from experiences, especially when their grandfathers were telling them when they were a bit younger. The story, someone can narrate this story for over 1 month for you. It was a whole lot of experiences as at that time. And it happened about 40 years interval. So you can imagine that everyone have a taste of it. And if they were going to tell their children, they tell them a whole lot of stories. So yeah. That is why Ghana Tourist Board chose we around here to work here. If not, if you happen to be somewhere from far, you might not get the necessary information to tell the people, because mostly this history was passed orally. When you were growing up,
and there's been traced somewhere.
They would definitely be traced. So someone will tell you something, and you now do your comparison and compare to the books, the one they wrote in the books. Then you check the oral way of telling younger ones how our forefathers do comparisons and get accurate information. So that is how we are also working here. Let's go down there. We are getting
into the slave cemetery.
Yeah. Many of the Greeks fade away as time passed on. The place was not actually fenced, and it's not even fenced as I speak here. So because of that, many reactions take place here, whether daytime or nighttime. The place was only discovered to be a tour site, I think somewhere 2000 or somewhere in 1999. Officially opened in 2000. Yeah. So before that, people were coming here to see, but it wasn't official. But official opening, I think it happened somewhere in 2000, where it was used by Ghana Tourist Board for people to always visit and see. So by then they maintained some of the graves that were still around. Every year we try to paint them just to keep it for future uses. Yeah, so these are some of the
So
graves.
why don't they try, or are they just trying to keep the originality?
Of course,
why don't
they try to
put up
keep
like-
the originality.
That's why they have the
Yeah,
stones.
because of the African Americans who always come, they want to see. If they should build this right now nicely, they wouldn't see the African culture. And this is how burial is done traditionally. This was how they were buried, so they have to leave it like this. These stones were put there by that time, so
Close
that
up.
years to come, they can still come and see or identify where the bodies were actually buried. Most of the stones are mobile, so they move away, maybe due to animals coming in to do.
But now that you guys are around, I don't think it will happen.
No, it won't happen again. That's why we try to maintain them, even though many fade away. But these are some of the fewer ones when you're moving. So this is about celebration. This is one of the works of nature where the water is coming from the rock. It's like a well. Yeah, so whenever they were in the camp, this was the only hygiene place they could to drink, to prepare their meals. It was very good, pure and clean, that they always drink from. Especially when it comes to crises like this, water was always scarce. Over there, where their bones were carved out. Some of their places where they were supposed to eat in groups. Yeah. Depending on the number of groups they fight with the bones. They put food in here. Food in there, and they were eating from here. So whenever they were captured and brought, this is the only place their food was being served.
So how did they carve this then?
They use harder stones. They have another stone that they could use to hit and carve. It wasn't actually easy, but it was in a way of punishing them. Because according to the history, when they came initially, they were designing bowls made from clay to eat from it, ceramic wares. But they were breaking them. Whenever they were eating, they eat in groups, so they usually break them. So making it in the form of punishment, they forced them to do this.
Wow.
Yeah, so that they can always eat from it and they wouldn't break it again. Now they left it. Even if you wash it, you can still burn it.
Oh.
Yes, it's grinding rock. It's still going on in some of the traditional houses here, where they used to do grinding whenever.
This is where they grind it.
This is where they grind with another bigger stone than that.
Oh, okay.
They
put the stuff in here and then.
Rather than put it here and they grind, the powder will be moving in there.
Move there. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think after you experience it before. You do what they could do it. That's not normal. Yeah. Let's go to the business. Okay, right now we are in the entertainment center of the slaves, where they were brought upon after every evening supper from the hall.
You guys are lacking behind.
They were brought here to be entertained, just to reduce the emotional pain they were passing through for leaving behind families and properties. Yeah, so it wasn't actually for enjoyment, but just to motivate them. So 4 drummers were always selected from each of the slaves who were not talented from each tribe to drum here for the rest of their bodies to get entertained. Down there happened to be the dancing floor
For that down there.
for those who were not taking part in the drumming process to go down and dance. While water so these are my people from the community. Mostly they were grown-ups. Yeah, but I think they're taking many of them away. So the younger ones always join them. Passed from generations to generations. I think this is one of the original brothers of the whole category.
So he witnessed the
He
slavery.
didn't witness it.
Okay.
It was passed from generations. I mean, you know, we those among them we are very bit young.
Later this.
But it was passed from generations. Yeah. So he has been here for over 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, doing this. So it's always voluntarily and customarily. We always urge our visitors to make customary donations here in the entertainment center. It's not a charge, but this is the tradition. You try to present donations on the rock from your heart. It's from your heart. This is how the tradition is. To always get them gingered. They will buy their cola from it, and that is the tradition of the place. So let them do it for you. You'll get a bit entertained, and we'll continue to other places.
Amazing how you guys can drum on a rock and make it sound like a real drum. Oh my god, this is interesting.
So I think this is how it's very unfortunate they are not here in their number. If they were to be here, you will get it more and more interested. But these are just younger ones trying to catch up with the pace. We always get this continuum from generation to generation. Okay, so I think in brief, this is what they have for us, and we still have to do other things.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, the notification bell, leave a comment, and then also don't forget to share so that anytime we post something here, you will not miss it.